aliens, human hybrids, Nephilim, great deception, world chaos, tsunamis. You want to stay tuned. Special edition, End Time Revelations with Pastor Henry Schaefer and Pastor Steve Hall. Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us here on 99.9 WUCC. Well, it's that time. It's time for the Seer program, and I'm Pastor Steve Hall from the Johnston Church of God, host of the show, and also I have in the studio with me today Pastor Henry Schaefer from the University Parkway Church of God, the other host of the show.
I am glad to be in the studio today. It's going to be an exciting day. And we also have someone who rides shotgun with us here in the studio.
There's another Steve.
We have another Steve, Evangelist Stephen Watson. It's good to have you in the studio with us.
It's good to be here again.
All right, Brother Steve.
Well, we've been lining up some stuff. You know, since I got back from Peru, my interest in the Peruvian culture and background has just kind of peaked, you know. I'm doing some reading and some thinking and some studying over what I learned. And just to recap a little bit of last week, and even what I've been doing on my In the Last Days program, talking about what went on there in Peru while I was there, is God showed me one of the biggest problems in the people was the curses that had flowed down through the ancestral line. Well, I began to look, and brothers, when you began to look, no wonder there are so many curses prevalent there. Look at the blood sacrifice.
Wow.
Look at the pyramids. Look at how they worshiped and who they worshiped, the fallen angels in giant form.
Right.
We mentioned Quetzalcoatl last week.
Right.
Found out that Quetzalcoatl was in South America as well.
Yep.
And under a different name.
Okay.
Now, it's a Ku Klux Klan. It's a Ku Klux or something. I couldn't
Okay.
remember exactly how to, I wouldn't pronounce it right if I could, you know, but it was under a different
The
name.
reason why I knew Quetzalcoatl is I heard it before.
Yeah, well, it was in Central America.
Yeah.
Well, he went on down to South America and established, and he was a giant.
Yeah.
He was not a normal-sized man.
Well, they
he
said
was a
that
giant.
when the Spaniards landed, that they thought that was him coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was
he said he would come back.
Said he would come back, and they said, "Oh, he's tall too, and they're taller than us." And so they were thinking that the Spaniards was, that's who he was. But
from description of Quetzalcoatl, it seemed to me that he was some kind of a hybrid human. I mean, he was not ordinary in any way. So when he walked in, number one, he was huge, and he had weird features according to many of the things I read.
Right.
And that he immediately commanded the respect of the natives and organized them, and then began to build these bigger cities and bigger civilizations, and then lead them right into sacrifice.
Yeah.
Human sacrifice, not just animals, but to the demonic realm from which he obviously came from.
That's amazing stories there, aren't they? How they set everything up, and how it always leads towards a blood sacrifice, to taking the life of innocent children, females, men, whatever, the sacrificing of the blood in that. Same thing as it was in the Old Testament when they were there in the Promised Land, and the people who were there before them, God commissioned them to go in and destroy all those who were there, who were causing their children to pass through the fire, or they were being sacrificed to Molech or something like that. Same devil, just in a different continent now.
And
giants as well.
And the mixture race was there.
I think, Steve, you had a scripture that you was going to read.
Yeah, you just read it for us a while ago.
As they were
I was looking at in Numbers, looking at the 13th chapter, and I was looking at the 33rd verse, where it was talking about how Joshua and them had went into the land, and it said all we saw were huge, and we even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak, next to them. We felt like grasshoppers, and that's what they thought too. And I was just questioning, did that really mean that when those giants saw those Israelites, were they perceiving grasshoppers crawling across the ground? And a lot of people, they may say, well, that's Jack and the Beanstalk fairy tale stuff. But that's the Word of God.
And the Word of God is backed up by archaeological digs across the world, including North America, Central America, South America, everywhere that man is today. They have found giant skeletons. And skeletons don't lie. If there's a skeleton there,
Right.
Something was there, and
Something
it was
existed.
the size of that skeleton. Now, what caught my attention a while ago, Brother Steve, when you read that, is, and I knew this before, never thought about it on this plane here, though, is that it says the land devours the people. That was one of the complaints of the 10 spies, and that's why they were so afraid. Giants and the land devours the people. And I mentioned to you, the land doesn't eat people. Now, you plant crops, you can grow whatever, but the giants were known to be man eaters.
That's right.
Even in the North American tribes, that there's oral history that the giants either had red hair or blonde hair, and they ate the native people.
Yeah, they were cannibalistic. And that's recorded in their history, and I believe their history is just as
I have seen some of the 1,400 and 1,500 paintings. You can look this up online, of some of the earliest paintings that when the Spaniards and the French came over exploring North America, they painted pictures with large, oversized Indians in them, and they were eating other Indians.
Yeah.
In the paintings.
Well, that's the reason why they were saying, and where's the place at where they had the caves that they built so high up in the cliff of the rocks?
Yes, that's out west, but I can't put my finger on it.
But it was so high, they built the entrance of the caves. I mean, I'm talking about a couple of hundred feet
and
high.
And they had just footholds, and they would let ropes down.
That's right.
So when they got it, they could pull the ropes up, and the giants couldn't get them.
Exactly, because they knew that the giants would come up and be able to reach in and pull them out, or whatever. I'm going to get on downtown.
Yeah. I was curious about what you said a while ago about how we know that these idols and such, were not just located where those temples were. They were in other areas of South America.
Yeah.
And I kind of think, they probably sent out scouting groups for other tribes and other peoples in other areas, and they brought their theology and their demonic leadership to those people, and that just kind of like snowballed all across the country. But I was just curious about the differences in the people that you saw in Peru. Were now they're not all. Do they still have tribes, or are they? Is it like?
Yes, there's still jungle tribes there, because you got to remember now the Peruvian country encompasses the coastal Peru, the highlands, which is the Andes Mountains part of Peru, and it goes over into the jungle, the Amazon jungle. So you've got tribes from all the way from the coast to the highlands to the river there at the Amazon. So yeah, you got many various tribes.
Because you had said last week that area was non-survivable. That there was areas.
A lot of the Andes Mountains, right, is non-inhabited. Very little inhabitants out there, and most of them that are, you'll see from the plane ride over from Lima into Huancayo. When you get closer to the cities, that there are roads that go into the mountains and people live there, but not in a lot. I mean, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of acres I saw, and that there was nobody living on that mountain range.
I saw this week where they're discovering snakes, extremely large serpents in the Amazon, and that some of them incredible length and thickness, and I know that was a great part of their beliefs.
Well, let me tell you a story about snakes since you brought that up. Pastor Leonardo, who's the pastor of the church my church supports, and I went over there and got with God's help the deliverance ministry started. He was in the jungle the first years of his life. I mean, he grew up probably when he was 10 or 12 years old. He was a jungle boy. So he grew up in the jungle. I don't know how he got there. I don't remember that part of the story. But he lived in the jungle. He tells a story one time he climbed the tree. He seen some berries up there. He climbed the tree, said he was a good ways up there, and was picking the berries and eating them, and looked down, and these huge ants, about an inch and a half to 2 inches long, coming up the tree. And what had happened, he didn't realize, but there was an ant bed at the base of the tree, and he goes and climbs the tree. The vibrations in the tree gets the ants coming up the tree, and he says before he can get down, he gets about 10 stings, and he says it almost kills him. He said these things were huge. But going back to the story of the snake, he said that one day him and a friend of his was in the jungle. They were doing some work nearby, and he said they took a break and they went into the jungle, seen a log, sat on the log, and messed around, ate their lunch, and went back to work. So the next day they come down where the log was supposed to be, and the log was gone. So they're looking around, and some people are coming out of the woods, and they say, "What happened to the tree here?" And these other men look at him and says, "You were here before?" And they said, "Yeah." Said, "We sat here the other day and ate lunch, and right on the log that was right here. Now the log is gone." And the man looked at him and said, "Sir, that was not a log. That was not a log. that was a snake.
Oh, man.
And the other end of the snake the head of the snake went all the way down to the river and went through the river. He said the body of the snake went through the river, and his head was stuck up on the other side, and he would eat the animals that came to the riverbank.
Oh, wow.
And they had killed this great, huge snake. So you talking about large. Yeah, there's some down there that's large, and that is a true story from my pastor friend.
Man, I'll tell you, I know one thing. My wife wouldn't go to the river no more after hearing that story.
No, but I was going to say there's some people. No, that's all right.
But all those countries, a lot of the countries, great deal, I would say over 90-something% of all the countries in the world have a deity that was serpent.
Yeah.
And especially in the areas of India and such, they regarded the snake as a god, and it's really scary to think about something that large and that scary.
Especially in our time, we want to look back and say it was all gone, but some of those things still exist in the real world.
So let me see if I can gather this all up here, kind of put it in a bunch for me. So we're saying that giants are in America, Central and South America. And you just read a passage of scripture saying that in the Bible, when they went into the promised land, that there were giants there, so that we know that, from the Bible, the scripture tells us that there was, later on in the scriptures, other than numbers there, it tells us that there were giants as well, because Goliath was a giant. He had
six.
He had
fingers, 6 toes.
He had, and he had brothers.
Right, he had 4 brothers.
He had
5
brothers.
of them total.
So when David went to get the stone from the water,
he got
5 stones for 5 brothers, 4 brothers and a man. Goliath. So he was planning to take them all down if he had to. That's what we assume,
right?
In that, because the scripture doesn't say. But here's the thing: is that we're saying went into the promised land, and as they go into the promised land, these men, Joshua, 40 years later. Actually 38 years later, they start to go on in to the promised land. And as they go in, God gives them instructions to kill all these people in certain tribes. And then as they're coming on in, the Bible tells that now as they're going into the land, the inhabitants of the land are frightened of them, because what happens is that when they got ready to go in, here's what frightened them. You ready? The water stood up on the ends.
Yeah.
And they were able to go across the Jordan River.
Correct.
So they saw that was reported. Hello, y'all. The same thing that happened as the Red Sea and all that taking place, killing that army. Now these people are coming in, and it has happened as well.
Yes.
For them coming in. And the first place they go in is Jericho.
That's right.
And they said that if they can get past Jericho, this wall,
Jericho,
great wall,
at that point had never been taken.
If they can take Jericho, they can take anything. So now Jericho is their first conquest, and as they're going on into the land. So as the inhabitants are there, and we're talking about giants in the land in those days. So those giants let's do this here. I'm not sure if the people that are smart as the giants, because the giants seem to be of
more intelligent
super
race.
Intelligence.
Yes.
And we know that if you go all the way back to Genesis in the 6th chapter, it describes how the watchers came and then they took women and they had relationship with those women, those offspring were giants, and a lot of people, they question that. I've heard people say, well, that had to be something else. We're not interpreting it right. But in Jude, the 1st chapter 6-7 says, and the angels which kept not their first estate but left their own habitation. Their habitation was heaven. Right. Before they came to earth. And when they came to earth and they did what they did, they left their own estate, and they did it freely. Now the ones that followed Satan after the battle that's described in Isaiah, they followed Satan when they tried to make war in heaven, and Michael and his angels, fellow angels, did what God told them to do, kick them out, and they fell like lightning. But these particular angels, they left on their own will, and they left their own habitation freely.
Right.
So when they did what they did, they had the intelligence that God had put in them. They were incredibly smart. They did what
So
they did. They
right.
knew what they were doing.
So when we talk about them being very smart, we're talking about now they hear that Jericho's fallen and that this army's coming. So some of them start to leave. They start to run out of the land. Some stay in their home, because we know Gath was a place where Goliath and his friends was at, his buddies. But some of them, they know that they exited the land. Now, of course, many they killed, but some exited the land. So they believe they made watercraft of some type, boats, craft, whatever they made. And now the current of the water, when they start to get into the ocean there, now starts to take them. What they say is that now they start to come to the west, start to coming toward America, just like everyone else has. And now they craft their way over here to where Central America, Central South America.
That's correct.
So that now that they start looking that now these giants that were in the promised land are leaving the promised land to save their life because God's coming after them.
Yeah.
And they know that if they don't leave, they're all going to be killed. So they come now to repopulate another part of the earth.
That's right.
And I was just reading some in Steve Quayle's book today where they do DNA testing. And they go back to where they thought all the Indians came from. And they're knowing that they come from that area, from the DNA saying, hey, yeah, they're from that part of the world. That's over here in America as well, especially with this DNA testing. Now you can start see the bigger picture of where everybody comes from, just like they do on, what is that? What's the one that
Ancestry?
Ancestry.com.
Okay.
Well, this is how you can do it now. They can tell you what you are wherever you come from. So anyway, so now they are in America. They're in North America where we're at. We find the Indian bones everywhere. I'm into giants.
Jekyll Island.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
And,
Ohio.
and in Central and South America. And Steve, that's where you're at in the book now. You just went to Peru. And so these giants we're talking about, how does it connect to the Bible? Is that these giants are descendants of those who were there in the Promised Land.
Yes, of course. And that's what I've been reading right here in Stephen Quayle's other book, True Legends, Tales of the Giants and the Plumed Serpents. And
let me hold that up here real quick. I want
show them that picture.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to show you right here.
To see.
There you go. So there's your picture right there that you can see Stephen Quayle's book there. And what's the name of it?
I want to show the True Legends. Can you get that picture right there? That right there is in Utah. That is a thousands of year old cave painting right there. I don't know if they can see that.
Yeah, they can see it. That's coming up. Is it on that one right there?
Yes. Yeah, hold on right.
Yeah, you put it right up over there.
Let me see.
There you go.
Okay, hold on. I'm getting better and better here. There we go.
Wow, look at that. This is the way cameramen do it right here.
Hey.
Real cameramen.
So there we go. We got it.
I think
Now
that's
talk about it. Now that you can get on our website and go into YouTube and watch this thing, right there, what you just saw. Let me describe the
Tell us
caption
what they
for
saw.
you. This is petroglyphs at Utah. We're talking about North America.
Yes.
Utah is called Newspaper Rock. This photo was taken in 1946. In this photo, you'll see a brave, that is a native brave, on horseback with a bow, hunting a deer. I see it. I'm looking at it right now. He's sitting on the back of the horse, riding the horse and shooting his arrows at this big buck.
Yeah.
Now, this is all on a rock thousands of years ago. Okay, and to his left is some bison, but he's not hunting a bison, this young brave on this horseback. And there showed some deer further in the background. And then something else changes. There are two giant figures.
Let me see that thing.
Giant figures. Here's the man on the horseback. Look, two giant figures with horns.
Oh, wow.
With horns. All right, now look over here. Here's a giant's footprint. Count the toes on the footprint, brother.
6.
There is 6 toes on that footprint that shows it to be a giant. There's giants in this cave drawing, this petroglyph in Utah, North America. There's a normal-sized brave. There's the giants. And there's a wheel, which represents a portal in almost every culture. Anytime it's drew.
I believe it now.
Okay,
yeah,
so this is not. Nobody went there and drew this. They knew that. They know it's thousands of years old.
Wow.
Now this thing is called True Legends, and there's petroglyphs to back up many of the hypotheses that he has formed from Indian folklore and from bones that they've dug up. There have been giant bones that have been found. There have been giant artifacts that have been found, and they shouldn't have been there.
Yes.
They had bronze and iron that predated so many things that the history says should have been found. It should have been found during this era, all in North America, Central America, and listen, South America. Things from the Palestinian area,
Yes.
where the Israelites went in, just like Brother Schaefer was saying, those giants left those areas. They fled to save their own life because they saw what God was doing for Israel. They went to South America. They went to Central America. They migrated north into North America, and all of the signs are there. They don't teach you this in history because they don't want you to know. And every time they find these giant bones in the Smithsonian or the FBI or CIA or any other of those hit groups, well, they want to come and take them all away so that you're kept dumbed down.
Yeah, but right around they say around 1949, a lot of the artifacts that have been discovered were boxed and shut away.
Yeah.
And that was an attempt to not let people know the truth about history and about archaeology, and so these things in other countries, they've actually shut those areas down, and so there are things you can still see. There's still you can still go to Peru and go and see the skulls in the museums, and you can still go to some places, I understand, in former Soviet Union and Russia and the Moscow Museum. I believe they still have some things that are on display that are, you can go in reality, you could touch it.
That's exactly
and
right.
It existed.
Let me read something here off of page 75 of True Legend, and it's talking about these giants. It says, whatever the reason they came here, they can be no doubt that the giants were in the Americas. That means South America, Central America, North America. Wherever they settled, they created excessive, cruel religions of blood and death. Sometimes the Native Americans successfully rebelled and killed these cruel rulers. Other times, whole cultures appeared to have slowly deteriorated under the demonic rule until they finally collapsed and vanished. We're talking about the Incas and the Mayans.
Just all of a sudden they vanished.
Right.
They all got eaten.
Some of them were no doubt eaten, but then they were worshiping demons, and the land became polluted. And here's something that I mentioned when I first come in, Lord revealed to me today, is that you look at all these cultures whose history was one of terribly shedding of blood for sacrificial demons. Or they sacrificed all these people to demons, tens of millions probably, if you just knew the truth of the whole matter. Right now, all of these are third world poor countries.
Yes.
Why? They have great minerals. They have great riches. Some have some of the fertile soil in the world.
The land's polluted
by blood.
Yes.
And there's a curse on the land because of the shedding of blood. What did God say when he says to Cain, where's your brother? Cain says, my brother's keeper. He says, what happened? Your blood of your brother cries out from the ground.
Yes.
All this blood of these innocents that were shed in all of these places cries out, and it brings a curse on the land. And no matter how much assets is in the property there in the land, the gold, the silver, and the jewels, the curse overrides it, and they stay poor.
Right.
But come to North America. In North America, we don't have hardly any, very rare cases that they believe that the natives went to cannibalism and that they went to all the sacrificing of their own people to shed the innocent blood. So when the Europeans came to America, they came to America that was not cursed by the shedding of millions of innocent blood.
Yeah.
And we've prospered up to this time. Now I'm fixing to conclude it. But things are changing. Why are they changing? We have killed 60 million babies in this country, and the land is polluted by blood. And again, this land will stop producing for the inhabitants.
And I'm gonna go ahead and make a plug. This may or may not reflect the views and opinions of the owner and staff of WUCC 99.9 FM. You listen to Project Seer. Let me go ahead and tag this on. And if you vote certain political parties in,
voting for the abortion.
You're voting for abortion. And you're voting for the innocent taking of innocent lives. So I'm just sorry, you got to be careful and know what you're doing.
Pollute the land, and the land will vomit out the inhabitants.
So, the life of the body.
So listen, let me go ahead and do this real quick. That picture. Tell them about the picture again and talk about it. I'm getting ready to put it on the screen for them.
Okay, this picture on the very cover of Stephen Quayle's True Legend shows an Indian that actually the Indian has a necklace on, looks like it's made of some kind of teeth or maybe horns. But he's a huge man, and he's got one buffalo. Now, we know we're in North America because he has a buffalo. They're only native to North America. So we know he's in North America. He's got one buffalo under his arm, and he's reaching down to grab another while he's running.
No, I'm talking about this one here.
Oh, the one you got back there. I thought you were talking about the cover
yeah,
of the book.
Yeah, the one that shows the 6 toes, the circle.
Okay.
And this was out of the newspaper. So I went ahead and pulled it up.
This was out of Utah's Newspaper Rock is what this place is called. And in this picture, you see buffalo. In this picture, you see the bison. And in this picture, you see an Indian brave on a horseback shooting arrows at one of these deer. But you also see these two huge figures a little bit above this native brave, and they are huge. And beside them, there is a footprint, and it has 6 fingers and 6 toes to the top left of that center giant. Also, in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a picture of a wheel with spokes. Now, listen now. There was no wheels with spokes.
That's not a wagon wheel.
It's not a wagon wheel. They didn't have wagons. Mm-hmm. This predates the settlers coming with their wagons.
Yeah.
So what is this wagon wheel? That is a symbol of the ancients of a portal.
Yeah. Yes. A spiral.
And all of these, listen, are on petroglyphs that are thousands and thousands.
Let me, when you say that, Steve, I want to. I don't know if you've heard me ever tell this before or not, but Betty Baxter. You ever heard the story?
Yes.
I tell you about the Betty Baxter story for those who may be listening. Let's just tell you something. This is a true story about the woman. She was crippled, and God spoke to her and told her that on such and such a date, at such and such time, I'm going to heal you.
That's right.
And she was twisted. Now I'm saying all this to get to the portal. Mm-hmm. So let's just talk about if the portals can be on a godly side. What does the enemy do? Because he knows portals as well.
He mocks God and everything that
Okay,
can.
so let's do this here. In the story of Betty Baxter, at, I'm going to say 3 o'clock on a Saturday, all of a sudden, and her father's in the room, the mama's there, and Betty's lying in bed, and the father's, he said, I don't believe in all this stuff, but he's there.
Yes.
So 3 o'clock, all of a sudden, in the room, at the wall,
the wind
starts to blow, and it starts to swirl.
Yeah.
There is what I see as a round swirling, wind sounding cloud.
Yeah.
Because it's a cloud is what she said. It's swirling around and around, and all of a sudden at that time that Jesus stepped out of that swirl. Mm-hmm. So he walks over, he does his things, she's totally healed. I mean, bones starts cracking and everything.
It's an amazing
She
story.
straightens out. I mean, and she told her story for years.
Yes.
After that, this was all documented, and when it was over with, that this thing starts swirling again, Jesus steps back into the swirling cloud. When I see that wheel that's on that picture there, these kind of stories start going through my mind as these portals, is because that I believe that is how that they travel from place to place as well, in that spiritual dimension that those portals can open up. And the enemies can step through.
Wow. Well, that's a lot of information.
I mean, I'm just trying to let you know is that when you see that, when we're seeing these portals on the demonic side and everything, there has been already stories where people are telling the stories that Jesus appeared and it was out of this swirl.
Right.
I mean, this is documented. This is modern. This is in the 40s, I believe, 40s and 50s when this happened. And then, of course, she went on to tell her story. All you got to do is get on the internet and Google the Betty Baxter story. It's a true story, and she'll tell you everything I just told you there. But the part that we're piecing together is the fact that these portals is that the devil can mock the way God does things, and the enemy moves through things like this as well, because he can't be. The devil is not everywhere. He's not omnipresent. So, and nor are his fallen angels or his cohorts, but there are ways that they are able to move through dimensions and show up, I believe.
Well, think about what's going on at CERN, brother. I mean, we're not even talking about demons opening up portals. We're talking about demonized science.
Yeah.
That is opening up portals, trying to study stuff that they ought to leave alone on the other side of that veil. Yeah. When you open that veil, what comes through, you cannot control. So you got to think, Well,
there's, the devil's always trying to counterfeit something. But I think about, too, Jesus, I think I mentioned it Sunday night when I was preaching. I said, Jesus appeared to the disciples.
Through a wall.
Through a wall.
Yeah.
Came through a wall. And
Betty Baxter, same way. He showed up.
In all the Bible, we read, we see the supernatural power of God, which demonstrates his authority, and the enemy's always trying to replicate it.
Yeah, and see, the thing too is when we're talking about this here, the giants, and how that even in the petroglyphs that they show what we appear to be portals as well. Yeah. How everything just ties back to something so supernatural. And the thing is that once you start to see it through the eyes of the supernatural, Project Seer, you realize that, okay, these giants are real. They're here in America. And of course, I know this is not the program for that, but there'll be a great unveiling about what's their mission, why were they here, and what were they doing. Of course, we know they established these religions.
Yes.
Of course, you think about it. Let me just share one thing that we're talking about on the. I don't know if we did it here on the program or not, but why is everything established always in blood sacrifice? Why is that those type things? And some of the theologians who are really gifted in the study of these areas are saying that when these demonic powers, and just say, Steve, like you're talking about, like Quetzalcoatl, and just say that they are fallen angels that have taken on human form. Okay, we're not talking about just a demon, but we're talking about something that they're worshiping that shows all these powers and all this stuff. What if that's so? But for them to be able to take on that human form, to stay in that human form, that it would require blood.
Yes.
The sacrifice of blood for them to give them the power to be able to stay in that form. And that's why there was a constant shedding of blood, not only the giving of life, so that people were dying,
right,
but it was feeding something else in a supernatural way.
Well,
Your thoughts on that?
Well, I've done some research on that. I've got I don't think I recorded these. I don't have them on my computer, but there is online on YouTube testimonies of those that were channelers for high-end Rothschild-type seances. And they would have a round table, and they would get the heads of states, presidents, and anybody else who was leaders of the world, and they gather them in, and these channelers channel down demonic spirits. All right, these channelers, because some of these spirits were assigned, they were going to go into some of the men that were gathered at the table.
Oh, get on down.
Now, I'm just telling you,
Yeah.
and this woman was telling this, she was one of the channels. She was one of the three. There was a channel that called the spirit down. There was a channel that managed the spirit while it was in the room.
Yes.
And then there was a channel that would assign the spirit to the person.
Wow.
And this is part of the ritual. The person who is going to receive the spirit that was being channeled down and chosen by these three women, listen, had to drink blood.
Yeah.
Listen, infant blood.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was menstrual blood.
Yeah.
But they had to drink the blood, and then the demon would come in, and they had to drink so much blood per day for this particular type of demon. All right, now it's not a regular demon.
I see what you're saying.
Type of demon.
To be able to satisfy the demon's craving,
yes,
it had to have certain blood.
Because we know that a lot of the demons that we cast out, nobody's drinking blood to sustain that demon.
No, but
there are different levels.
But let me tell you what I have. I'll go let you finish your thought, then I'll tell you.
So this channeler said, "Yeah, I've done this." And tells the story, and it's a long story, but it is worth listening to. But that is not just one story. I've heard that from different channelers who got out and found Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well, and now let me just go ahead and add to that. You talk about the blood sustaining a certain demon and having to have so many. That's what they say. We're not saying this. They're saying that. But let me tell you what I've seen through a deliverance session that we had one time. Okay. Is that a person who had like 7 or 8 blood transfusions. Yeah. And they're going, you ever heard people talk about they've had a blood transfusion, but where's the blood going? And the doctors in them said, we don't know where the blood's going.
Yes.
It's going somewhere, but we don't know where it's at. And this spirit said, I'm the one that consumes the blood. And it raised its hand up, and like you do a Pac-Man, and it says, I consume the blood. It started doing its mouth like the hand.
Like
if
a
you
mouth,
can see it
like
like that right there.
Mm-hmm.
It says, I consume the blood like Pac-Man.
Yeah.
And that's what it was doing. So it's just like that spirit had to have that blood to be able to maintain its strength.
That's right.
And to be able to. So now I know we don't understand that, but God speaks to tells us that the life is in the blood.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're talking about it just being human life, but there's more than that. It's
Yes,
a
there is.
spiritual.
Yeah.
The blood of Abel cries up from the ground to me. You know what I mean? So there's life in the blood, and it has a voice, and it's able to sustain not only in a physical realm, but in a spiritual realm as well, because the blood of Jesus is still applicable today. It's fresh today. It's new, and the devil hates the blood of Jesus.
Yeah.
And just think about this right here now. Something else we've learned, that blood transfusions will bring in demons into a person.
Mm-hmm.
You
That's
get
right.
a blood transfusion, you need to go through deliverance, because that person,
Pray over that
demon
blood.
can come right through
That's
that
right.
bloodline, right into you, because you willingly submit to the transfusion.
That's right. Pray
Even
over
with the
blood.
organs, if they do organ transplant, demons can attach and go through. Some people don't think we're crazy right now.
Yeah.
I mean, some people literally think we've lost our mind.
How do
but
we get into
science?
How do we go that far, man?
Because listen, but science has backed this up.
The ride's upside down.
Yeah, we're about to fall out, ain't we? Good thing we got our seatbelt on.
Got our seatbelt
Well,
on.
you know, and I hope I'm not going too far out of where we're talking, but I was listening one time to Hillary Clinton, for instance. She was making fun of people that talk about UFOs. She used people that talk about UFOs as being ignorant and dumb and all this kind of stuff, and so that was her opinion about UFOs. But then we turn around and we find out that she communes with Eleanor Roosevelt by channeling.
That's what I've heard.
And Bill Clinton himself, in a speech that you can, I believe we played it, he said he had went to a event for the Roosevelt family, and he said, my wife, as y'all well know, communes with Eleanor on a regular basis, and she wanted to send her love to y'all. Let me tell you something. People believe what they want to believe.
There you go.
And they believe or they don't believe what they want to believe.
Mm-hmm.
But the Word of God is as powerful as a two-edged sword. And I just look at it like this: the devil has people working for him, and I believe now. This is just not my opinion, because I ain't voting for anybody. I'm just going. Well, I've got to. They say you have to choose between the two evils, and I tell you where I'm basing it. I'm basing it on which party does not believe in abortion. That's how I'm voting.
That's the way I'm gonna do it.
And that's how I'm voting. But I will tell you this: Hillary Clinton, her obsession with Lucifer, her obsession with communicating with the dead.
Mm-hmm.
And her obsession with
Blood sacrifice of babies.
Yeah, the blood sacrifice of babies wrote her off of my list as someone that I wanted running the country, and that's just my opinion. But I also believe that this is not just it's not just centralized with her. This is with the elite of the world today.
It is.
It's with the elite of the world, and they're trying to control things.
Well, when we're talking about the sacrifice in Central and South America, especially when you see off the pyramids that they had there, or wherever they were sacrificing there with their at their altars.
Yeah.
What started all this was that, and the thought was that the blood requirement for blood, that it's greater than just we're sacrificing to a deity or to a god that's going to cause the rain or the stars to shine or the sun to come up the next day or whatever. Mm-hmm. But unbeknown to the people, it's a requirement by that demonized person, king, whatever, or angelic, half and half, demigod, whatever it is. The requirement for blood is there, and when we start thinking about this in a demonic way, and we get it from a Christian worldview, and stop only looking at it as pictures on a page.
Yeah.
And this is what they used to do, and how terrible it was that those people were deceived, is that those demonic beings are still alive today.
They're still here.
And they're still doing their work, and they may have morphed as far as their schemes of how they're doing things, but their thirst for blood has not changed.
That's right.
The women's rights movement is right in the middle of it. I mean, when a woman's got a right to murder her baby, that is nothing more than murdering for convenience purposes or personal preference, and there's no difference than that than offering up to the demon itself. If Quetzalcoatl was on the top of the altar.
There's too many people who want babies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
It's
too many people
absolutely
who want 'em.
horrendous.
That would love to have babies.
But the world calls it terminating a pregnancy now. They don't call it
Murder.
murder.
I call it murder. Hey, let me go back to something else.
Let's
Back
go.
up just a minute. I was in Edisto Island earlier this year, and in the spring, and doing some kayaking and fishing. Me and my brother. Well, we went to the state park there, and in Edisto Island, they have got a place there they call the Indian Mound, and the Indian Mound is ties right on to one of the rivers there, the Edisto River. So we paddled out to it, and we was fishing, and sure enough, there is a mound that is right on side of the river, and it's a mound of oyster shells. And that's almost all that's in it. It's a huge mound of oyster shells. So I'm looking through the book. Now let me read this. This is in this True Legends book. And so this is not talking about Edisto Island, but it's talking about other islands. It says around 50 students were upon the ground this morning and continued their search until it started raining. So these people are excavating an area. And it says the citizens gaze in the silent wonder on the relics of a race that one time ruled the land. For 7 miles along the shore can be seen large mounds of clam and oyster shells left here by the Indians, who used to congregate by hundreds to open oysters for winter food. It is near those shell mounds that the great number of skeletons have been taken up. I have seen these mounds with my own eyes in Edisto, and they're named the Indian Mounds. And you can go there yourself. All you got to do is go to Edisto State Park, and the best view is from the river, and the only way in the river is in a kayak.
Do you think they buried the people there, or do you think that they were killed there as they were like eating something come and got them as well?
They got a bad oyster.
Is that what it was?
That's possible.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and they killed over, and everybody ran. And
Or
left
did
them.
they bury all the people there, you
They
think?
could have buried them in the mound.
Buried them in
oyster
the
mound.
mounds, or were they there eating, and that was always a place where they would come and...
Well, it's kind of seasonal because you can't eat oysters at certain seasons because they are poisonous. But it seems like that was one of the main foods, and so they would gather and congregate. But I know this exists, so somebody says that book is just a scam. I can prove some of it. My own eyes have seen these oyster mounds on the edge of these riverbanks.
Yes.
Been there, done that. Hello. I'm an eyewitness.
And what is it you say, Pastor, about someone who has actually seen is better than somebody with an opinion?
Yeah, all
A
day
man with
long.
experience is never at the mercy of a man with an opinion.
That's amen.
It's true, isn't
I
it?
know what I saw, and I know what they even call it. That's the title. That's the trail. Hey, and there it is.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You argue with somebody tells you there's no giants, and you produce a giant's tooth or a giant's femur bone, and the femur bone is 6 foot tall, and science says, yeah, that's a real human femur bone. And what you going to say? It ain't real.
Yeah. Well, they've built entire dinosaurs from just a tooth and said this is what it looked like, and they
believe that.
So there's been others who have actually discovered the entire skeleton of a 13, 15 foot man,
and nobody believes.
And nobody wants to believe
wants
that, So it's a complicated world, isn't it?
I got a saying, and I came across this. Well, I said this years and years ago. It's probably there's nothing new under the sun, so somebody else has already said it. But here's a saying that I came up with years ago: let the evidence speak for itself. Stop trying to speak for it. If you see a giant skeleton of a Tyrannosaurus or whatever you want to call that, a saurus, and you got an entire skeleton, let the skeleton speak. This is how big it was.
Yeah.
This was the bone mass. This is probably an estimated. The things will speak for themselves. But what happens is, with all this evidence that science looks at, they have a preconceived idea of what they're looking for as a result. And when the evidence does not line up with what their preconceived turnout is supposed to be, they'll dismiss the evidence as irrelevant. It's irrelevant because it doesn't fit what they're trying to prove. Yeah. Evolution is a perfect example of that. They have no structural proof in the fossil record to support their theory, yet they cling to the theory, and everything that does not support the theory, they dismiss or get rid of. There is human tracks inside of dinosaur tracks.
Yeah.
And they're in stone. Now, of course, it was mud at one time, but the dinosaur foot was print there, and then the man's footprint was there. And they want to dismiss that. they want to dismiss the age of the dinosaurs. Right now, if you go to Trey Smith's videos, you can see that there are dinosaurs that are found with soft tissue still surrounding the bone, and
I saw that the other day.
red blood cells still in the bone because the bone hadn't fossilized. And you telling me that that thing is 65 million years old, and listen, it couldn't be more than a few thousand years old.
Well, they say they believe some of the Eskimos that found those, the big elephants.
Yeah,
The mammoths.
Mammoths. And not only that, the animals, their dogs, eat the leg or whatever, but the Eskimos as well.
Yeah, well, there was
This might be pretty good right here for us.
Well, they actually discovered a mammoth. I was reading on the internet the other day that they discovered a mammoth, and they had thawed out part of the leg part of the mammoth, so they could do some things. And one of the things they did is, believe it or not, that they cooked a piece of the meat to see if it would cook, and there was some people that tried it. I don't know how much they ate, but that's actually
pray over it and sanctify it, brother.
Documented that actually happened. So
I believe it. I've heard of the Eskimos feeding it to their dogs before too.
Pray over it and sanctify it. Oh, listen, go ahead and I got your page here.
Oh,
go ahead and show them the book.
On the cover?
Yeah, talk about it here.
Oh, you do have it up there. Yeah, so there again is this giant, a giant, and he has got one American buffalo under his arm, and he's going to get his next one. And the buffalo are not that big. There's no way an average man could ever do this, but this guy, well, he's not average. He doesn't even look average.
No.
But he's getting him 2 buffaloes to take home for supper.
Yep. Wow. Isn't that amazing?
True Legends is the title of the book.
I ain't talking about that other book I got. That's the one you got.
Serpents.
And I got the second edition.
Yep. Well, Schaefer's been reading out of Steve Quayle's book, is Genesis 6 Giants. And boy, there is so much good information. People really, especially our listeners, we want you to be educated beyond average America. Because if you only believe what they're telling you on the news and what they're telling you in the textbooks of our schools, you're not getting a real education. You're getting what they call it. It starts with a P.
A dumbed down version.
They dumbed down. The Nazis did it. Propaganda.
Yeah.
All you're getting is American propaganda. That's the word I was trying to
Yeah, when you take the Giants, well, of course, if they showed, and people really believe that there were giants in America, North America, Central and Southern America, which one of the things is that it's so great that when we were doing our studies and all is that why are there so many in Central and South America? Many believe because of the arid conditions, is that it's so dry that the bones are preserved, and that they are very careful when they move them because they do crumble. They're ready to crumble right on up, just like anything else. But they have been preserved, not from like a mummification,
right,
but just because of the arid conditions, and that's why there are so many. And that's like one of the last great places that you can really find the remains of these giants. The more wet the lands, of course, go ahead and deteriorates quickly. So that's why we're seeing a lot of those there, Central and South America. But here's the thing: is that if they can wipe that out of history,
they can write history the way they want.
And that's what they're doing. They're rewriting history now to say anything that they want. But what it does too is that if you can show that there were giants and all, then it gives it a biblical tie back to giants in the land in those days.
Yes.
And it gives real credence. Hey, the Bible's real too, because
they don't want that.
They don't want to show that. No. And then of course, all the way back to Genesis 6, and that's where his brother Steve started off at. Stephen Watson started off at that. There were giants in the land in those days. Mm-hmm. And after those days, with the Nephilims and what have you.
And
it's amazing.
And we know there was a difference in the giants that are talked about in Genesis and then the ones that are talked about in 1 Samuel, because they were technology wise, they were smart. They worked in iron. We know that they had iron swords, and they had worked in metals. So there was an intelligence level that they had created, and they were not just a bunch of Neanderthal type dumb creatures walking around banging the earth with a big club. They were vicious. They were vicious, and
they were building stone walls and stone castles out of stones that weighed up to 50 tons.
Right.
Yes.
Tons.
And think about the pyramids. When we think about the pyramids, that shows up everywhere. And even the studies that I've been doing in Genesis 6 book is that the pyramid in America, there was one in America as well.
Yes.
But it was an Indian, but was nowhere near as big.
Right.
There was a small pyramid that they had. But how intelligent you have to be with just everything built off of pi, 3.14. Is built off of that with a pyramid in the exact location where it needed to be at, and all these things is that we know that even though that they were sacrificing blood to this, that it was very intelligent. And even the Mayan calendars.
Yes.
When we look back at the Mayan calendars, how smart they were and how everything is pointing to certain equinox and all these different things. I mean, they were very intelligent, but we've got people today couldn't even, without a Pokemon and a phone, they couldn't get from here to Walmart.
Yeah.
Am I doing all right?
That's good.
That's good. That's right.
Because when we look back, there was a great intelligence in the building. They've got stones that were this huge stones, and they'll have 20 different angles on one stone, and it fits perfectly with 20 other stones around it. It's phenomenal. They say they don't know how it was absolutely possible. It'd be impossible, basically, for us to manufacture and put together what these ancients did. Now, how they did it, we know that we don't know, but it's probably angelic intelligence behind all of this. And, of course, nobody in secular world wants you to believe that.
Yeah, you know how some of the theories that I've got as far as like being able there wasn't stone cutters or anything that did that, is that when they got ready to place these big rocks, big stones up to each other, that there was a technology that was able, I hate to use this term, I'm not going to use the term, but it was a tool that they could point at this stone, and through the frequency of it, that it could liquefy. But it would be almost like gel, turn it almost like gel.
Right, and
they could push it right up to where they needed to be at.
It'd mold itself to
whatever it needed to be at, and then it would dry, take that off of it, and boom, there it was.
Well, I believe that. I believe that 100%. I read something similar to that there might have been a chemical they could put on it, and it would soften the frame, the whole outside of this thing, and they could put it in place. And just to put it in place would be amazing.
Yeah.
Because it's not a bunch of little stones melted together. It's still one big block.
Yeah, well, I think if you can melt one of these things and gel it up and put it in there.
You got some technology.
Well, you can do anything.
Because if you look at these stones carefully.
Moving it wouldn't be a problem.
If you look at the stones carefully, you will see they have a marshmallow effect. Almost all of them bulge on a round face.
Like you push it in.
Yes, and like it was, you put the next one on and it would bulge like a marshmallow. You get a soft marshmallow and you push on it after it melts, it bulges.
That's like
every one of them's got a bulge.
It's like if you was to put mortar on the end of a block and you push it up
and it
tight,
exactly.
and it would bulge out the ends of it.
So all these things are bulged, and there's so many odd angles that there's no way they could have cut these things so perfect that you can't get a piece of paper between it unless they just kind of mush together.
One phone call.
If they will. They got
you can jump in and swim with us, 803-335-3131. You listen to Project Seer. It is August 25th. It's on a Thursday. So if you're listening to a call in tomorrow on Friday, but nobody's there, this is Thursday. It's 2:52. It's 8 minutes to the top of the hour. You're listening to Project Seer, 803-335-3131. I'm your host, Henry Schaefer, along with Steve Hall and Stephen Watson. We're talking about Genesis 6 giants. We're talking about giants in the Central and South America. Just kind of throw a bunch of ideas out. Steve, why don't you go ahead and did they tell you about the hands and the 6 fingers and why the Indians greeted?
No.
Why the Indians greeted?
I hadn't got
why the Indians always greet.
They held her hand because they know you had 5 and not 6.
If he had 5, if they always did how.
Let me see your hand, Brother Watson.
Let me see your hand, Brother Watson. And they would they knew that you were. If you had 5 fingers, they knew that you was all right. If you had 6, they were on the run.
Yeah, because you want to eat some of them.
That's right. 803-335-3131.
You know, I had somebody ask me the other day. They said, Brother Watson, they said, I didn't think angels, could have sexual relationship. And so, they wanted to know the answer. And, Jesus one time, was trying to explain to some men that said, there's a woman had, I believe it was 7 husbands, and they all died consecutively. And they asked, Who's going to be her husband in heaven? And he said, there won't be no marriage in heaven. It'll be as the angels in heaven. But Jesus was very careful to specify in heaven, because in heaven it's all spirit. But on earth they had the ability to be man-like. And we can go to Genesis 18, where they sit and ate steak, milk, and bread, and ate it just like you and me going to Sizzler.
That's right.
And so they were able to manipulate their bodies. They were able to do things that they wanted to do, and that there was out of order, with God's plan. It was not His plan for them to have a union with His creation of man. So
that's where we get all the hybridization that brought the flood in, the contamination of the DNA of man, because it was not a creature that God had made. So when the book of Enoch comes up and you're reading it, you'll find out that God didn't send them at that time to hell, which I believe they will eventually be put there, and He didn't let them go into the spiritual realm and go up to heaven. They were cursed evil spirits to walk the earth, and that's according to the book of Enoch.
There you go. So here we have it, 803-335-3131. Got a comment, got a question. This is Thursday. We're just a few minutes at the top of the hour.
Yeah, so if you better get that call in quick.
Yep, and it'll happen a few more minutes. Brother, I guess we must be way on out there. The ride's still upside down for a lot of people. They turned us off about 2:30.
They're worried about their wallet falling out at this point. Your wallet's in your change in your pocket knife. It's all falling
when
out.
y'all raised y'all's hands up and you said, how?
But
that really messed their mind up.
This isn't so far fetched, because when you look at the things that we're talking about, people, I think I read somewhere over 90% of most Americans believe that they've either seen or believe in UFOs. Mm-hmm. Over 80% believe in Sasquatch. There's been all kinds of reports of things seen in the northwestern hemisphere, especially into Canada. Abominable snowman and things of that nature, and all that area was saturated. What you showed a while ago was in Utah, and that region of the world, going up into those parts of the country, saturated with not just demonic spirits and demonic beings, but a lot of the artifacts that are being found in those areas.
There's a UFO connection that he makes, Stephen Quayle makes. And he talks about, you'll find out that everywhere you see UFOs, you will find big feet, Sasquatches, abominable snowmen. Yeah. They're all the same thing, and it's connected with the UFO phenomenon.
And I think that's one of the things that we'll be talking about here in the near future is the great deception, the unveiling, how that the angels, the offsprings, fathered these giants, and they're demonic in nature, and they've spread all across the world. But as the Bible tells us, that as it was in the last days, as it was in the Noah's time, we're going to see him again as well. And that's what we're trying to do, is just enlighten everybody's mind so that you're not taken away in your faith or your belief when all of a sudden some of these things show up and you said, oh my God, what is this? We're trying to tell you that it's all scriptural based, and you just got to be looking for it, and you can save yourself, save your family.
So I got a redneck version of this. This is what you guys need to do out there. If you see an alien and you know it's an alien, a real alien, you need to kill it. And when you kill it, you throw it in the back of your pickup truck, or you can throw it over the hood of your pickup truck, and you strap him down, and you drive all across America. Don't call the FBI. Don't call anybody.
Don't call the Smithsonian Institute.
Don't call none of them. You get 1 million pictures taken with all these other rednecks who wants their picture taken with this alien.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be on Facebook and around the world, and they're going to have 1 million people can testify, I saw it, and it was an alien, and it was real, and I had my picture taken.
Yeah, and and the first thing you do is go to Ancestry.com and go ahead and pull some DNA so that you can get a lowdown on where this thing came from right away.
Yeah. Where it didn't come from. How about that?
I've seen pictures of bears, and I've seen bears in the zoo, but I had never seen a bear in the wild. And my wife and I were driving across Kentucky in the middle of the night one night, about 2 a.m, and a bear ran out in front of us on a 4-lane going to Paducah, Kentucky. And I said, I believe in bears now.
Brother, we got to go. I got to get out of here. All right, we had to wrap this thing up. Brother Steve, God bless. Thank you for being with us. Brother Steve Watson, you get the next to the last word. I get the last one.
I just want to say we really enjoy being with y'all. Y'all bless our hearts. We appreciate those that call in and those that click on the video later, because we do check to see if anybody's listening and watching. We just encourage you to read and study the Word. There's a lot of good material. These books by Stephen Quayle are very interesting to read, and they base it on factual archaeological discoveries. It's not just a bunch of hoopla. So, read and research for yourself. God bless.
All right. Well, I've been your host, Henry Schaefer, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Project Seer. Tune in next week, same station, same time, and we'll be right here listening for you to tune in with us. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in today. We've been your hosts, Henry Schaefer and Steve Hall. The end times are here. Anything is possible. Are you ready? Don't miss the next episode of Special Edition End Time Revelation.